owners, because even owners struggle with this, are recognizing the massive contextual shift that has occurred within our profession, which I believe strongly is a huge contributor to this epidemic of burnout. It's not individual failings, nor is it individual company failings. It is a huge context shift, and we are still trying to shove our same systems through this new lens, and it's not working.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ABA Business Leaders, brought to you by 3Pi Squared. I'm April.
And I'm Stephen.
And today with us, we have a special guest, Dr. Becca Tagg. Welcome, Becca.
Thank you. It's good to see you both.
Yes, good to see you too. Okay, so full circle moment. Back in the day, right, when you first started 3Pi Squared, and Becca had a podcast at the time. You were actually
I was a guest
on her podcast. That was that was your first
that was my first one.
Right?
It was in, I think, 2017, 2018.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. Wow, that's yeah.
Crazy.
Fun times. That's so cool. So today we're just, we invited Dr. Becca over to have a chat about a lot of things, but really focusing in on self-care in the sense of a clinician, right? Since all of you guys are, most of you guys are clinicians, or you're, in some capacity, an ABA business leader, an owner, clinical director. Sometimes we have, behind all of those titles, we have a lot of things to do. And we feel that we have little time for ourselves. And back in February, I believe it was, it's something I think you do yearly, but you put out a self-care calendar.
Twice a year, every February and every July, which we picked those based on data, as a good scientist.
Right.
We have no relationship with anyone else like we do with ourselves. And February with Valentine's Day, I also am at Camp Lejeune. So a lot of our team members are military spouses and their partner may be gone. And that can make Valentine's Day a bummer. So between that and that relationship with self, we do them in February and then again in July, because we serve pediatrics, probably 70% of our population. And that's the 1 month between the shitstorm of June and the shitstorm of September. Yes. So let's fill it up with some extra self-care through the Community Care Initiative, which is us making it freely available to everybody else also. We do it twice a year for the last 6 years.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I love how, and we can talk more about this, about what self-care can look like. But, over the years, I've downloaded your self-care calendar and have loved to get new ideas, fresh ideas of, I didn't think of it that way, or, this is a good idea. But I don't know, let's talk a minute about what self-care is. And I think at this point, I could be wrong, but I think at this point, a lot of us in the field have heard and talked about, it's not just about bubble baths and chocolate, right? That it's really looking
at cake too. Yeah, I like cake.
You like cake. So I think that's whether you're a parent or caregiver, or I don't think it matters. If you're a human, I think it can be a challenge to show up for yourself and know what that even looks like.
I'm glad to hear you say that you are feeling like a lot of people have gotten that message that self-care is not just that consumer self-care. I'm not sure. I think a lot of times it still comes up, whether it's in talks I'm doing or even in sessions as a psychologist, right? As I'm working with other adults or teens or what have you. I think the idea that self-care sometimes is uncomfortable is something that hasn't fully landed. And I think it's less about it being related to self-care and more about, as humans, a lot of folks are motivated by avoidance, right? Avoiding things that are uncomfortable. And sometimes self-care is uncomfortable, right? Scheduling your mammogram is, probably not the most comfortable thing. And at 44, it's a hell of a lot more comfortable than cancer.
Yeah.
Do it, and I mean, I'm being punchy, but sometimes when my phone rings and I see who's on the other end, self-care is hitting the red button. Frequently, it's a hard conversation, right? If I think about at work as an owner, it's having hard conversations. That is self-care. It's also community care. And I think that's important too. Self-care, since I started talking about it more, like around 2016, I think I have a complicated relationship with it maybe now. And I think it's that, I feel like it's framed as an individual failing. And I hate that actually. And I think that's wrong, because burnout is not an individual failing as much as it is a system. And that's why I came up with community care, because I like alliteration, and it hits on a context that I think is missing when we're looking at equity. When there's a power differential, and many times there are, you can't, if you're a member of that minority group, the group with less power and control, let's use ethnicity for an example, there's no amount of brownies and bubble baths that's going to ameliorate the impact of racism. So when you have more power or control and you're a member of a majority group, it is your responsibility, I believe, it is my responsibility to create systems of care that protect and support those who have less power and control. That is community care, intentional action done to provide care for a group, which is not the opposite of self-care, but is rather complementary to self-care, which is that individual action aimed at providing care for self.
It's very much a system failing. And we have a lot of conversations. We have a support group that we just started and in the beginning of the year. And there are already a lot of people participating. And this is also where we got the CEO Moms panel from, right? Because we had such great conversation, in the support group, that I was like, let's bring this out. If you guys want to join me for a conversation where people can hear. But that is our worth is tied so closely, like individual worth is tied so closely to these things, right? Like if we are feeling, if we're not able to be as productive yesterday as we were today, or if we're finding that we need to take a break today, but we didn't have to take a break tomorrow, or, anything like that, then we're failing. It's tied to our worth.
A lot of these people that we work with are, they are the change makers in their company, right? And so how I assume that there has to be some level of self-awareness to identify that my systems are broken, causing burnout or maybe mistrust, toxic behavior, right? Do you have a good way or a helpful way that people can step outside of that? Because again, you're going back to, I'm the failure because my system, right? So it's kind of this loop, you know what I mean? Yes. Does that make sense?
I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And because I think not being on the same page is where that, like, being a shit to yourself comes from, like, this must be a my issue. So let's look at our profession specifically. And as I've said a million times now, I super appreciate Dr. Carr's use and separation of the profession from the field or the science, because they are not the same. I am talking about the profession as in BCBAs who are generally working in insurance-funded or educationally funded programs for kids with autism. And that is a profession separate from our field. So I think there is in many ways, a lack of overtly naming and acknowledging the state of the profession. And that is a system, and context matters. So I think that is a useful thing, because for leaders specifically within our profession, I believe one of the major contributors is folks are still operating like we're in a system of 2019 when it's 2026. So I just want to kind of review that a bit. So the field has changed, and that has nothing to do with Dr. Becca Tagg. It has a significant impact on Dr. Becca, just like I'm sure it has for both of you and everybody listening. But I don't know that folks are aware of that. And the reason I'm taking the time to label this is because I see it as the parallel process of what I see in our ABA graduate students when we're teaching the science, which is missing the understanding of like a case conceptualization, which includes taking context or setting events into the picture. And that's where I think our breakdown is. So there's workforce 2020 changed a ton of things. Full stop. Just period, right?
Yep.
So there's workforce instability since then. There's certainly tighter margins financially, like business-wise, due to some change, a variety of things, but changing payer policies, legislation, increased payer and administrative burdens, also connected to those policies, higher expectations from multiple stakeholders, because we've had a big, I don't know what's the right word, like a consolidation is the word I'm looking for. We've had a rapid consolidation within our profession of private equity backed companies making a lot of acquisitions. And whatever your feeling is about PE is what it is and is as separate from that. That's a huge context shift. Consolidation is a major context shift. And this has led to some of the, higher expectations and different operating systems within individual organizations, which is a context and system. But we also have our bigger system context, which is the way our profession has changed. And I do think that there are a lot of leaders who are still operating like it's, the system of 2019. Oh, we just have to get back to that. No. And I did it too for years until realizing, okay, so it's been years now. It's time to this is the new normal, right? And I don't know that clinicians who are not owners, because even owners struggle with this, are recognizing the massive contextual shift that has occurred within our profession, which I believe strongly is a huge contributor to this epidemic of burnout. It's not individual failings, nor is it individual company failings. It is a huge context shift, and we are still trying to shove our same systems through this new lens, and it's not working. And there is, as Stephen said, self-awareness is part of that. But I also think that stuff jumps off the page at me. I think I tend to be more of a systems thinker. So I do think there are ways that you can train to kind of look at those systems, and that BCBAs are uniquely poised to do so because it's part of contextual factors of what we know, what is part of our science. And I think it's illustrating that it's missing in our training severely, which leads to treatment outcome impact, but also this individual impact that we're naming. So if one of the big changes that I've experienced as a clinician is less paid time off, and now I'm experiencing burnout, when I can look at that as a contextual factor that has changed, that helps move me towards the idea, oh, maybe I need some more time off, or I need to change my schedule. Or if I used to have, unless I was working in a different setting, I was doing more in-home and now I'm doing more clinic. That's a contextual change. Maybe I want to evaluate that impact. Or maybe I had more little kids or big kids or more students. Or I think when we are better able to identify the contexts, the multiple contexts, right, that are have the potential to impact, then we are better equipped to come up with those functionally equivalent alternatives, which is all self-care is. Self-care are replacement behaviors. We know how to do this. But I think it gets messy because we're not training our folks in behavior analysis. We're training them in ABA for kids with autism. So that's my hopeful pitch, right? That we are uniquely trained to do this. We are able to understand this when we know how to do it. And it's the same process we already know how to do with our identified patients.
Right.
Yeah, and not to go off on a tangent, but I think that little barrier there is what we see with leaders within the company, right? Because they really have a hard time applying the science to their staff even, and what that looks like amongst the organizationally, outside of just providing programming for learners. Because, we do look at systems, we help business owners look at their systems, and, and we look at, one of the indicators is how often are you putting out fires in a day, right? Because if your job is, I'm putting out fires, then we need to pause. We need to take a step back and we need to look at this, right? Because that's not okay. That's not typical. That shouldn't be your job. Your job shouldn't be putting out fires all day long. So let's take a step back.
A fire twice, you don't have a fire problem. We have a system problem.
Right.
If somebody comes to me with the same question twice or the same break down twice, that's not a them issue. That's a me issue. That means there is something that is not working. And it doesn't matter if it used to work. It may not work anymore. And so instead of putting out the fire, it's antecedent interventions. It's, I don't want to keep doing consequential interventions. How do we get ahead of this? Spot on. I agree for sure.
Yeah. And, I was even like as basic as, communicating and they're going, they can absolutely change. They could work for a while and then we have to adjust them. But being able to clearly communicate the most basic of like expectations, like even being able to break something down through a task analysis, right? And I often like remind people of like, hey, let's go back to the whole peanut butter and jelly sandwich task analysis, right? You may think that your directions and your steps and your TA are like very clear. And here, take this and make the sandwich. And then this person comes with some odd combination with a knife sticking out of the sandwich or whatever, right? Yeah. And then we're like, oh, well, that's not what I meant, right? And so really being able to apply that in the way of being able to clearly define the steps. But to do that, I think you have to also understand what you're wanting your outcome to be. And I think sometimes that could be a little challenging when you're finding yourself in a new skill set as working on the business side of things versus the clinical side of things.
So I agree, but I think it's a slightly different, it's that multiple exemplar, the true mastery, but it's also that I think a lot of leaders, and I've experienced this, as well as other folks I do consulting with, where, and actually I don't know that I would have seen it if I hadn't noticed it in others. As a leader and an owner, I often forget that the system is supposed to benefit me too. There are many owners that exist in systems that depend on them, but do not benefit them. And that is a damn trap. Yes. And I think that is related to our context change in our profession, because it is a very different world. I own a practice, and I certainly cannot compete, nor do I want to compete with, companies that are backed by billions. I'm also acutely aware that a lot of providers want to work for those companies because they can offer more than I can. The system does not benefit small business owners right now, period. So that also reflects in our specific profession. And that's another context, I think, as owners and leaders, we want to be aware of, not in a maudlin way, like, oh, the sky's falling, but in a, hey, this shit's happening. Because of that, I need to be extra aware that this system needs to benefit me as well, or I need to exit the system. But I find that a lot of leaders, and that includes clinical, like BCBAs who are supervising, not just manager leaders. Mm-hmm. I think when you're in a supervisory position, a lot of times we are creating systems that depend on us, but are not designed for us or don't really benefit us.
I mean, I saw the same thing in engineering, right? Like I had this old mentor and I would say, why didn't you write this down? And he said, well, then they wouldn't need me. And it's like, like that's a double-edged sword there, right? Like we're depending on you, right? So yeah, I totally get that, right? There is that like mentality of they need me. And there is like, sometimes it's fun putting out fires, right? You get a certain amount of happiness from having that job, right? Like I'm a hero, right?
And sometimes you see like something happen quick, right? So you get that quick reinforcement.
You get that,
oh, I did that thing.
Yeah. And then, like you said, like the system itself, and I've often said this, but the system that we're in, it seems to be a race to the bottom at this point, right? Like everything seems to be incentivized to have. I make more profit if I have a less trained staff, if I get them out with the clients quicker, and it's if you don't have a good understanding of those incentives, it's easy to kind of, just follow the river, right, to its end. So it's really important to know what you're getting into so that you can course correct, because it's just, like I said, we work with a lot of companies, I'm sure that you have, right, where I've heard this way too many times, I left the company because I felt uncomfortable doing what they were asking, or it felt unethical. And 2 years into my own company, the only difference between me and the place I left is it's my name on the door.
So is the person like then, okay, so they're in the place where they're like, oh gosh, like I'm in my company, things are happening that I didn't want to happen. That's why I left my past place. Yet, how did I get here?
Right.
So like understanding that middle part, and what that looks like and what that means and how to do it differently. What are the replacement behaviors? What are your intentions there? And what are you wanting it to happen? That kind of goes back to building your vision.
Yes.
But also like there's
not
more to it.
acknowledging the context and contingent
that we're in. Yes. Yeah. And maybe not, maybe not having the awareness, right? Well, like, somebody else did it. So I mean, I guess I can do it. And so having a full understanding of what is out there causing maybe things that we don't want to happen. And the levers are kind of out of our control, right? To a certain extent.
One of my other beefs with self-care is that if I hear about one more pizza party, or it's offensive, it's missing the point. It's hitting a rhinoceros with a dart. Like, I think you slow down. It's, the issues are way before that, and not acknowledging that it's a system problem. It's an ongoing issue. And I think some of that comes from we're not identifying all of the contributors. So in my mind, there are community care initiatives that have to be established. When we're talking about employment, it must be a psychologically safe workplace. It must be a physically safe workplace. I will be honest that some of these next ones are probably just my own, and they're not, for anybody else. But I believe that health insurance is a requirement, that if you have full-time employees, you must offer health insurance and you must offer PTO. People are going to get sick. They're going to be out. Financial stress. If I'm not acknowledging that as a contextual variable that will impact my employees' lives, I am kicking the can down the road to stress myself out, because they're going to get sick. They're going to get stressed about money, and that's going to become an issue, right? Same thing with healthcare. Not having some sort of discipline system that you actually use, right? So some of this community care is self-care for the owner, and it's things that are uncomfortable for leaders to do. So maybe we're avoiding them because we're avoiding discomfort. But it's always going to catch up to you. It's always like you can kick the can down the road. The road will always come to an end at some point. And so the challenge becomes, when we're not acknowledging the context that we're in, the profession has changed. And so if I want to try to compete with a big box company, I have to remove benefits to increase salary to offer a commensurate salary. Then the person comes aboard, then they have no PTO and they're on one. They have no health insurance, they're on one, because I did something. I was not realistically looking at my system realistically. I was trying to make it fit something else. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like a lot of the self-care and the community care takes care of the owner. It does. Because when your folks are healthy and well and able to do their, they've got technology that works, HIPAA compliant platforms, time off, they've got way to access their job aids, they're getting adequate supervision, they're getting adequate training. Like, a lot of those owner leader challenges don't happen in the same way. And so when I think of self-care, I know people say you can't pour from an empty cup, which I also hate that, because we should not be pouring out of our own cup. Think about a wedding, or anytime there's like a tower of champagne glasses, you pour in the top and it overflows. That's what self-care is. It's not dumping out of me into you. I can only serve from my overflow. So to create overflow is a system that's creating an environment where people's needs are met. And then that creates the overflow. So I think our understanding of self-care is still fundamentally flawed. It's not taking from me to pour into you. Otherwise, then I'm just waiting for someone to pour into me. I've taken away my own autonomy. It's about I need to be so full that I can feed others from my overflow.
One of the things that we had a conversation within the support group of BCBA, like ABA business leaders, right? And not just women either. All people within this group who were contributing to this conversation. Owners saying that they feel guilty going out for a coffee if it's not work related. They feel guilty not being part of the 9 to 5.
In our profession, I think a lot of owners are women, and the reason I label that is there are different, we're socialized differently. And what I'm going to describe next is a trap that has happened to me on more than one occasion. It will again, and may come up in your group, which, because you mentioned the moms. I am not their mom. My job is not to take care of them. Full stop. I want to provide systems that they can access that provide care should they choose to opt in. I am not there to take care of them, and that's different. And I that may sound like semantics, but for me, there's a big difference, because what you described when you were talking about that martyred owner is what I hear from my maternal mental health, my clients that I see for therapy, who are oftentimes moms, where we've got revenge bedtime procrastination. We're staying up because we don't have any minutes to ourselves. I'm barely eating. I feel unseen, and I'm resentful about that. Family, it's why it is a huge red flag to me when I hear folks talk about their work family. That's not the same. Because a family, by definition, is non-contingent. There is nothing you do. I always show up for you. We are together till the end. It's blood thicker than water. Work ain't like that. By definition, as an employee, it is a contingent relationship. It is, you have got to do you have to do certain things and I have to do things. That's not a family, but language matters. And so when we keep using this language of family, I become mom. You're the dysfunctional cousin. This is my abusive dad. And no wonder we're all friggin' burned out.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense to me. And so I guess that's my main question is, if you're stuck in that loop, we can share, hey, we've been there. But it's really hard for people to see when they're stuck in a loop, right? It's hard to be able to step back and say, oh, wow, yeah, I see my responsibility in this situation, right? I think I'm providing one thing, but I'm actually providing something completely different. And it's not helpful to anyone. It's not helpful to my staff. They don't have the independence that they should have, that would be beneficial to my clients. I don't have the resources available to mentor these people, or put out those fires, or micromanage them to death. So like, is there like a book that they could read, a video they could watch, or a talk they could to try and kind of step back and see that?
A framework would be starting with listing out all of the things they're doing. What are all of your jobs? And that means from picking up supplies to the hiring, firing, sessions, billing, whatever, every single task, and look at it. Because that's the other thing. There's creep happening, right? Where like all of a sudden I did this once and now
it's mine.
6 years later, I'm still the one doing it. Like, what the fuck?
Yes.
And put that on paper. And then I think there's an important categorization. What are the things that only you can do as the owner? And that's important because there are some things that only the owner can do.
Of course.
Highlight those, right? So those aren't going anywhere unless you hate them. And in which case, then maybe if most of your list is highlighted and you hate all of that, maybe an owner has run its course for you. And that's okay too. You get to decide. Then it's looking at, I think this is related to what April had said about where people feel like they can't step away. Part of that problem is they've created a system where they don't see themselves as different. And I'm the one working at 11 o'clock at night and on Sundays. So I don't have to be there 8 to 5 necessarily. Like my schedule is different because I have to do different. And that can't mean that if I'm working at 11 on Sunday, that I'm still expecting myself to do 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So it's rigidity, right? It's that, and that often comes from a lack of understanding, because when you don't know, you tighten up on everything because you don't know what you can let go, because you don't know what the actual levers are. So get everything that you're doing on paper, Highlight the ones that have to stay with you. I'm a big fan of, and I do this at least quarterly, but more often if I notice shit's weird, is a time study. And it's intensive and effortful and invaluable. So you're only going to do it for a week. And I'm happy to share a template that I use, but it's every 15 minutes. It's just in an Excel sheet. Every 15 minutes, you write down everything you did in that 15 minutes. And I mean, whether you went pee, whether you scrolled for 30 seconds on social media, because what you got to find, what we'll find is the patterns, because we're analysts, so we can do that. Yes. And so you can start to see, where am I leaking time that I didn't even realize it? And then, does it need to stay that way? How can I change it? Do I want to change it? Do I not? But it gives you data, because without the data, we're talking about what I call cardiac assessments. I feel like I'm working too much. Well, okay. Are you working too much, or did you have a bad morning? And so now everything feels like the pits, because that's normal, but that's not what we're making that's not what we're making decisions on for our little learners. And so we shouldn't do it for us either. So get a good solid time study and what patterns are jumping out at you. And based on that, what do we want to do differently? Some common things that either I've done or that I've seen other folks get stuck doing is, those little tasks. I think of tasks as, like in values, like a penny task, a quarter task, a dollar task. And I have been suffocated under penny tasks because they're easy to do. So I'm just like, oh, I'll quickly do it.
Yes.
But 100 pennies is still $1. Yes. It's just a lot heavier.
It's a lot heavier.
If you're finding a lot of these penny tasks or quarter tasks, where else can they live? Is it hiring somebody? Are you doing more work that is supposed to be somebody else's, which PS, then that creates a anxiety around, this is somebody else's, but do I actually have to do it because what we say doesn't match what we do, and that type of thing, which is a whole other system problem.
Yes.
I think it's critical for, leaders to have uninterrupted time, period. And to get that, you have to really train your folks on what is an emergency, a true emergency, and what is urgent and what is uncomfortable. But you can do hard things. I believe in you. I will get back to you. You know what I mean? That's because we jump into save or fix. And just like with our little learners, that creates prompt dependency. So we are creating the exact same errors that we do when we are poor clinicians with our little learners. I call them our big learners. My employees, I call my big learners, because I am teaching them and they are vulnerable, like they have less power than me. And so that language helps that stay in the front of my mind. It's always a parallel process. What I do with my big learners should be exactly what I want them doing with our little learners and what I'm doing with our little learners. And so it's inconsistency is what leads to this burnout and stress. And that's why there's more anxiety, because the opposite of anxiety is not calm. It's safety and security and certainty. So if we have more of that, that is, I think, the biggest community care hack for our world, maybe.
This is a big part of my day of what I coach business leaders through, right? And I do it myself too. So it's really super exciting to hear someone else bring these points together. And I'm just like, yes.
We have not left behavior analysis.
No. And so even in my own personal life, I was we had a death in the family. We were all sick. So it was like the 6 weeks of time where just like survival mode, right? Mm-hmm. And so then transitioning back to real life after survival mode, that can be rocky sometimes, right? And so that first week back, I found myself like back into some old rhythms and routine, like some old behavior. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I blank? Blah, 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 and then I was like, oh, hold on a minute. So I did a time audit for myself. I just did a 3-day time audit because for that, in that moment, that's all I needed. And then also in all of that, some life changes had shifted. I needed to start focusing my afternoons more directly on my child and not multitask work and child. Like there were some things that had moved around. So then I recognized, just very simply, the first pattern was, I've got about 20 and sandwich generation going to in-laws, doctor's appointments, which can sometimes take a full day up, I was like, I have about 20 dedicated work hours a week. And I'm thinking, I have like a 40-hour 9 to 5. I was like, okay, all right, okay. I can do something with this. I can go back and figure out, reacquaint myself with where I want and need to spend my time and what that looks like.
All right. So like, here's my theory, and you can tell me I'm crazy. Okay. So like a lot of what BCBAs are doing is they're reducing the bad behaviors, right? And I'm not a ABA therapist or a BCBA, so I can say the bad words. Right. And I've said it a couple times, but they're almost like beating the no out of kids, right? Like the compliance thing, they have to be compliant. They can't say no. And I'm wondering if spending 25 years doing that, does the same thing for your staff, right? Oh, they're doing this. They're saying bad things. I have to stop this immediately. Is that like part of it? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
I think where you're going is like, because of people saying that like I'm telling my staff what to do, but they're just not doing their job.
Yeah.
But then
like
they're not supporting their
having
staff
that, that negative feeling in my body. I can't have that. I have to fix this right now. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, the fixing.
Yes. I have to stop this. This isn't allowed. And I'm just wondering if that is helping this. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do think that is one of the issues. And that happens. And that's, again, a parallel issue because our big learners do that in session with kids. They're giving in to the kids because a good session is one where no one's upset because that's comfortable. And that's hugely problematic, right? And again, look, it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We are doing the same thing. So as an adult, if one of my employees is upset and I'm worried about retaining talent because I'm a small fish in a pond, or I don't have the bandwidth to think about hiring somebody else, or maybe I am not that far in my own healing journey, because I am a huge believer in how the way you do anything is how you do everything. You don't know what you don't know. So you don't realize that your own shit's getting in the way.
Yes.
That is limiting and negatively impacting yourself, but certainly your big learners and your little learners, because we're modeling. So then if I'm trying to save them because I can't tolerate the discomfort for whatever reason, then I'm modeling for them what to do, which is discomfort is not okay. If somebody is uncomfortable around you, you better fix it and make them happy. So then our learners aren't getting better, right? Whatever that means, but we're seeing more interfering behaviors. So then the kids have harder sessions. So the staff come to me more, and I just have more, in that way. And I have struggled with this, because I am a good emotional regulator. So the staff were coming to me. It was less about answers, because I kept saying, I know y'all know this. What's happening? It was that I was co-regulating them, that we had not moved from co-regulation to regulation. And part of that is one of my own personal challenges. So as I'm a psychologist, so certainly I learned it. But as a person who's neurodivergent, I have struggled with this my whole life because I am very direct. I can say the same thing to you in person and in email. And in email, people have said, gosh, Dr. Becca, you're so aggressive. First off, if I was aggressive, I now know, okay,
right.
All right, we are different, and that's fine. But I'm just being direct, and it's because I care about you and I want you to understand. So as Dr. Brene Brown says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. I communicate very directly and clearly, which people don't always like, especially from a woman. And I'm 100 pounds on a good day, so they definitely don't like it from a small woman. And in person, though, I'm constantly co-regulating the other person. It's why interaction with people, I love it. Obviously, it's my special interest. I went to grade friggin' 27 for it, but it's also something that's really confusing for me. And what I've learned is I have to co-regulate us in this conversation to keep myself safe, because my direct communication style, people don't always like. So I have to be constantly co-regulating us. And so I didn't realize I was doing it, because I've always done it, and it's served me well in some settings, but not others. So, yes to all of that, and it can change.
Yeah, I know. I don't know, do you want to speak to the part of what we do is kind of help screen people who come to us and say, you know, I want to start my own business, right? We've spoken, we've done some public speaking, and we've had many podcasts on, you know, even just looking at red flags and looking at what you need to know before you start. Yeah. And that is probably the biggest concern that we have with owners, and that we try our best to like help to talk to people about that. And we've had people who came and then they started working through some of our courses, or they've had conversations with us, and then they back up and they realize, oh, I did not realize
how much
I had
work this
no
was.
idea what the job description of this owner is, and how, you know, when we talk to people about, you know, do you enjoy being a BCBA? Do you enjoy working, like, especially in this model, right? Do you enjoy, you know, the early intervention, the sitting, getting down the floor with the kids, and, you know, whatever. Do you enjoy the behavior analytic work of working with these little learners, as you
what you went
it?
to school for, right?
Yes. and, you know, you're going to see less and less of that, you know, and there are going to be a lot of new skills that you have to learn. We had a conversation, I don't know, it's been a little while now. We've had multiple conversations about, self-awareness, and just understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, and your ability, like even like looking at co-regulation, and even being able to feel into your body, even be able to label your own internal state, right? And understand, I mean, I don't even know what to call it.
Well, it's called interoception. There actually is a name for it. It's the system. And that's part of, again, it's the parallel process. We have clinicians who do not know that they don't know everything. That's really the problem, right? And that's why I don't think it's about self-awareness. I mean, yes, in some ways, but it's more of a community issue where I'm not seeing healthy philosophic doubt. I'm not seeing this. Like, I went to grade 27 because the only thing I learned each year was the more I learn, the more I don't know. And we don't have that. And so that, I shouldn't say for everyone, but there is less of that significantly now. And that means that we have less people who are curious. And if I'm less curious about why, then I'm not collecting my time sampling data. I'm not, you know, it's the offensive part to me is, on what planet do you think this is easy? Because if you think just you're going to open a business, that means that you're thinking that I'm not doing a whole lot. Like, if you work with me and you're like, oh, I'm going to quit Dr. Becca's and I'm going to go open my own place. Look, I love that for you if you want to do it. But to do it because you think it looks easy, or you think it's good, that I'm just not very good at it, and that's why it's hard, or something like that. We're really missing, I call it the noble intention, which comes from family therapy, functional family therapy. And it's this idea that everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got, even the behavior you don't want to see more of. And that acknowledges that there are, again, contextual factors at play that we don't see in other people's behavior, that it doesn't make it okay, but it may make it understandable. And missing all of these contexts, it's like there's all of these things that are invisible.
Yeah, I think it's not just about awareness, but it's when you get the 4 letters behind your name, BCBA, or, you know, it doesn't mean that then you know everything there is to know about being a BCBA. It doesn't know that you know everything about providing early intervention for a kid with autism. It doesn't know that you automatically have all the skill sets to open a business. It's just a starting point. It's a starting point.
Yes. And I have a talk that's called The End is Just the Beginning. But let's play this system out. So you pass the exam, you have the 4 letters. Their next, because this is not BCBA's fault either. This all goes together. The next experience for them is being inundated by recruiters offering them $100K plus salaries without formal mentorship and without being good at their job that we know of yet, right? Because they've not done a competency-based interview. They're brand new. So even if you're the best brand new BCBA, you're still brand new. So they're getting feedback from the world that gives them this message that we're saying we don't like, right? Which is that you don't have more to learn. You have arrived, and you deserve to work as few hours as possible and to make maximum money, and you don't even have to be on site. So this is how systems are shaped, right? This is how this system of insurance funded or educationally funded ABA for kids with autism has shaped the view of our workforce, right? Because we impact the system, the environment, and the environment impacts us. And so then So then we've got folks coming into roles with these beliefs. And let's say instead of going to a big box company, they come to Del Mar. Because this happens. They're mad. They are, I am not a great fit for a lot of our current folks because we have performance standards in place. Everything is competency based to earn additional money. You do have a cap on your salary because I can't not the salary, it's hours. I don't want you working 100 hours a week. And community care is me making sure you don't work 100 hours a week. But because I also only pay you what you're truly generating, then I'm limiting that. Or our BCBAs do direct work, especially early BCBAs, because 1 hour of 97153 is an hour of 97153. There's no outside work. When you're new, an hour of 97155 or 56 is easily an hour to an hour and a half of unbillable or like not acknowledged work. So if I'm having you only supervise and you're hitting your 25 hours per week, but it's all super, 5.5 or 5.6, you are likely working 100 hours a week. I set you up to burn out. And because I didn't label the impact of the system or that process policy, you don't understand why. And because of the system of our field or of our profession, what happens in interviews a lot is now it's the first the first thing I bring up, which is, our BCBAs do direct. How does that feel for you? 9.5 out of 10, they say, I don't do RBT work. And I say, I want to pause. It's not RBT work. It's direct work. I've been a BCBA since 2009. I've always done direct. I do direct now. It's an important part of patient care. I like the kids. It's also reinforcing PS. But, so I think if we're not aligned on this piece, we probably are going to be misaligned on other things, because I'm also going to want you to help clean, and I'm going to want you to fill in, and I'm going to want you to change the toilet paper if it needs changed. So these beliefs have come from the environment, like our system. And I think that this all contributes, right? So then they're in this situation where the clinician believes that from day one, I should be able to make 100K plus from home, only doing X, Y, and Z, and you better not tell me any corrections on how I'm doing what I'm doing. We've created the monster. We're seeing folks who are saying, I've been at a couple different places and I keep burning out. What's the pattern in these different places? Or hopefully people are doing that. I'm also seeing folks leaving the field, which is sad, but I burnt out in a previous job and career, and that's how I sort of arrived here. So I understand how that happens. I think it's when you can look at what you're doing in that, what's contributing, right? What are contributing to my stress or behavior? We can really work to tease out what are the functional relationships? How is this happening? And then that helps us to make choices. The problem is and will be competing contingencies. So folks love when I describe what we do at Del Mar. They're like, I'm in. And then I say, here's what our pay is. And they're like, oh, that's a lot less than what such and such is offering me. I'm seeing more BCBA direct companies. I mean, we've moved to that in a lot of ways. So BCBA is identifying that one of the things burning them out is this constant churn of new RBTs. And that's not an RBT issue, right? I mean, there's the same system we just went through applies to. Like, people are starting to identify this and are starting to say, you know what? I'll take less income in my salary in order to have this, which tells me people are starting to notice the contributors.
We're seeing it more, not in the beginning of the process, but, oh no, here we are. There's a problem. How do we fix this? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. A couple months ago, I had an owner come to me and say, how do I fix this? I had a BCBA. They got a job offer, $150 an hour. Yeah, that's true. I was like, what? There's no way you can fix that, right? That's unfixable. That's not
yours to fix. No. That's the important part. When we care so much about our profession and what we do, especially as an owner, right? You've given your blood, sweat, tears, and time. It feels like it's yours to fix, but it's not. I think of employees as I'm leasing them. No one's going to stay with me forever. They're going to leave. Partially because I live in a military town. So I actually have an entirely new census, kids and staff, every 2.5 years as a business. And it's always been that way. And my first partner was a Marine who died. And this is the population I choose to support. It's a value. So I knew that going into it, it was going to be hard, that was going to be something. So I had to expect that. Part of our system, our professional system, is that when everywhere is hiring and you can get a job anywhere, it makes it, right? It reinforces the job changing, which led to the retraining of RBTs, which leads to the BCBA, right? This all connects. Plus, when there's so much variability, people can go to different places, and we're not uniformly even applying the science. So even if I understand DRO with April, and then I go to Stephen and he's doing it differently, right? It's this variability, the inconsistency across our field is really what's biting us in the behind over and over again.
So I have two direct, I could talk to you forever, but so there is this underlying truth that I get to with almost all business owners. And the truth is, if I don't do it, nobody else will. And kinda, right? You are ultimately responsible for this thing that you've created. And so that seems to be a really hard thing to give up, right? I can't give up billing because if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it wrong. Or if I don't do the hiring, I'm not going to be able to do it. Do you know what I mean? And so do you have any suggestions on how to break that?
So I think the first part is about acknowledging their experience. So I have had 2 billers that almost put me out of business twice.
100%.
For their performance. And both of them speak at conference. These are well-known people, right? And I think, and the reason I say that is because we have to combat thought. It's about reality testing. So you telling me that that's not true, I don't hear anything else you say because that actually is true and was my experience.
Right.
So I think it's important if that actually happened to the person, then we want to say, yes, I see why you feel that way. Here, that did happen. Here are your choices. You're either going to continue to do billing then, or you're going to come up with ways to find an increased likelihood that the next person doesn't do that. But if you're choosing to continue to do billing, then you have to start saying it that way. I'm choosing to continue to do billing because that is a choice.
Right.
And maybe you like billing. There's been periods in my life when I've enjoyed billing because I'm starting and finishing something, and every other thing as a owner is open
Forever.
and hanging, and as a divergent person, task completion is a high value reinforcer. So now I will do laminate. I'll make materials sometimes because I just need to start and finish something.
Yes.
But I had to be able to see, why am I doing this other task? It is providing something for me. And the owners you're talking about, Stephen, my guess, I would always be curious because I'm not them. My thought would be it provides reassurance that the billing is done correctly.
100%.
So that's what they don't want to give up. So really it's about when you hire the next person, part of the onboarding is every week at the end of the week, you want an update of where things are. So it's never going to get so far away from you that you can't catch up. Right. Then the reality testing becomes, yes, I got screwed before and I've taken steps to do it differently this time, so it can't happen that way again. Right. And that's not a feeling. That's my system. That's my process.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing, having putting in a system that you can trust, right? And you can also be aware that systems are going to break, just like you said, hey, this system worked for 2 years and now all of a sudden it doesn't work. Why not? Right. But then being able to figure that out, bring in the experts and fix it from that point forward. But then I just have one more question. And then if you haven't, I'm just curious about your thoughts on AI, right? And because again, this is a concern of mine is I think the average experience level of a BCBA in the field right now is around 3 years. It may be a little bit more, but maybe less now.
I think it's less.
And so you're putting in their hands the entire knowledge of ABA, right? And maybe they haven't earned it yet, right? And so like, you know, you were saying before, right? Like we're giving these $100K, $120K, $150 an hour salaries to brand new BCBAs, but then they have ChatGPT in their pocket and they're able to look these answers up and do these things that is 100% outside of their scope.
Not have the discretion to know if they're correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just curious.
So I don't pay people $150 an hour, and I don't
Sure.
start them at $150K a year. We start people low, and then they earn, ideally over the first year, they should be getting 6 raises to get up to what our actual BCBA salary is, because it's competency based. Everybody tells me at interview that they know how to do blah, blah, blah. And I have consistently seen, maybe you know it at the level that you think is adequate. That is not near my up in the ethers expectations, but like some expectations that I've worked to realistically, define. I can't give it. I'm not, you remember cash on delivery, CODs? I don't know how old you guys are. I'm 44. So CODs were a thing. It was like, you can pay for this or cash on delivery. People were out here fronting, like selling drugs. Like, I'm going to front you this washer dryer. I'm going to front you this ounce of marijuana, right? Whatever it is. And then I'm going to expect you to bring the money back. We can't do that anymore. We just can't operate that way anymore. So I need to see you demonstrate these things, and then I can give you more.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'm constantly pulling the reins back. Like I had told you when I sort of had to let 2/3 of this, or chose to let 2/3 of the staff go, because it was such a big shift that I think that's part of this system. So if we aren't just giving people stuff non-contingently, which we know does not change behavior, then we wouldn't have quite as much of the reliance on AI, because I think folks use that to close the gap between what they know and what you expect them to know.
Yes.
I want to close that gap because I can make sure you get it, accurately, concretely, and, in the ways that I think you need. But I'm also sending you the message then, you're not independent. Like, I care about you. You're important. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You still have stuff to learn.
Yes.
And I'm actively teaching that to you as part of our mentorship program, which is, every report gets reviewed. Every, programming stuff gets reviewed. And so when there's adequate human support, you don't need this AI support that I think is being used as a shortcut, which is okay for some stuff, but we're talking about humans. This is another child. So I picked psychology because I experienced trauma, more than one early on, and most of it was not intentional. It was well-informed clinicians providing me care at a residential treatment facility that was abuse. And it's impact over intent. I don't care that you don't think you're not intending to hurt anyone using ChatGPT. You are doing harm by having a position that you don't know the job, how to do what's being asked of you. And I'm not saying that's your fault 100% of the time. I am saying it is 100% each of our responsibility to not do harm. And so if you're being asked to do stuff you don't know how to do, it might mean it's not a great fit position. And then we want you to ask for help. But then we're kind of back to this, but then you're going to have to take a pay cut, and you're going to have to, and you're going to get feedback that maybe you don't know everything yet. And all of these things are uncomfortable. And so how do we tolerate the discomfort?
But I want to switch back really quick to the AI conversation about like skill deficits and whatnot, but also time and like you got to get it out, got to get it faster. Oh, okay. So these treatment plans are taking you 15 hours to complete. These assessments are taking you 15 hours. Well, I need you to get it done in 3, or you can only bill for X amount of hours, right? Yes. And so,
but go upstream. That means the issue started systemically in our field work, which is that people are signing off on hours without making sure that folks are getting to fluency and competency.
Absolutely.
This is our profession doing it to ourselves again.
But it's also the system because of the financial piece of it too, right? Because that's one of my big soapboxes is like, you have to train your staff. You have to support your staff. And then talking about what that looks like, which means that you're going to need to have the money in your business to provide said training, because it's not all billable. You're barely going to hit the surface providing the training and the support within those billables.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but you're very limited, right? So it's also like just kind of feeding that whole mentality of you got to get it done quicker, you got to get it done quicker, you got to get more done. And it's okay. Like if you don't know how to do it, just get it done the best you can. I mean, I reviewed many treatment plans where, it's like across multiple, I'm going to be careful here, but like across multiple learners, I was like, hold on a minute. Did I just read this treatment plan? Oh, no, the name's different. Mm-hmm. Sure. And then really question, right? Had a lot of questions of like, why are these two treatment plans almost identical? I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of differences in these two humans, right? Sure. So, and that's a whole nother story, but
that's still part of our upstream system, right? I took a job where I have too big of a caseload because I have all this 5.5 and 5.6. So I have to write these reports that still take me 15 hours because no one made sure that I knew that before, because I was getting feedback. I was getting no feedback, which I interpreted to mean I was doing a good job, when in reality, somebody just wasn't actually reviewing it. And now you're giving me competing information saying it's not good. Well, you're the problem because confirmation bias is a real thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's understandable, all these cognitive traps. I think what's hard for me is that, hard's not the right word. I don't know the right word. I guess it's emotional marbling, right? I'm feeling a lot of feelings about it. We know this, though. We teach folks these exact things. We teach how to do case conceptualization. We're teaching about functionally equivalent alternatives. We're teaching about schedules of reinforcement. We are teaching about behavior change. And the things that we're doing are actively contributing to the exact things we don't want to see, I think and it's not a BCBA fault or a PE fault or an owner fault or it all is this constellation that comes together. Yes. But when everyone continues to do the same thing, it's not going to change. But we are uniquely trained to be able to break these complex behavior chains down into the contributors.
Yeah. And I think, I hope that it goes that way, right? I hope that people are more open but my concern about AI is that it's just going to, it's like programmers, right? Well, we used to need 20 programmers to do this, and now I need 2. And so all it's done is eliminate human jobs, and it's increased the productivity. So it used to take you 10 hours to do a treatment plan. Well, now I expect you to do 17 in that same amount of time. And so it's if we're relying, and then the incentive structure, right? Because all of these practice management softwares are adding AI, which I think in certain scenarios it is helpful.
It could be a tool when you
but when I put my tinfoil hat on, right? If their AI system is helping the BCBA come up with the amount of hours that is required for this child, every incentive for them is to say, well, you know what? If we program the AI this way, we can get them to do 10% more hours. And that means we make up on the back end, we make more revenue because now every one of our BCBAs within our system is increasing their hours. So, and because of the lack of experience and the increased push for billables, it's like, okay, I guess that makes sense to me, right? And there's no pushback because we don't know it.
We're seeing the change that we're seeing, these OIG reports. We have handed the payers the data that they are now using to decrease benefits, to cut benefits, to reduce any telehealth service provision. And similar has happened in behavioral health, traditional talk, like psychotherapy, with programs like Headspace and the text stuff, because people used AI and did not see a difference between what humans did and, what the AI did, or humans were using so much AI, however this came to be, that then reimbursement rates tanked because why would I pay you more when a computer can do it? And we're living it in behavior analysis. And we've contributed, we've contributed. So I think you're right. And we're seeing that shift. TRICARE was one of the first to, or DHA, to cover ABA for kids with autism in the early 2000s. And so what we've seen over the years is that what TRICARE, everybody was villainizing TRICARE, and it's, look, are they a challenge? Sure. But I understand why. And others are going to start doing it too. And TRICARE has gotten more and more restrictive. And we're seeing, just yesterday, there was a vote in North Carolina about our Medicaid that is going to be a significant change. And it did go through. And that's exactly right. We are going to see, I've been telling folks, there's going to be a lot of people with 4 letters after their name and no job, unfortunately. And I don't mean that in a funny way. It's actually very sad, because I think our science is powerful and we can do a lot of good, and God knows there's a lot of need out there. But I don't know that we're equipped to use it yet in the way that is the full power of what we could do. And I agree with you that we're going to start seeing much more automated systems, specifically for the BCBA. Because let's be clear about whose role is not going to be done by AI. It's not going to be the technician. So the 97153, the direct work, is not what's going to be taken over by AI. Right. It's going to be me, who's sitting next to the RBT, or who's doing parent training. It's going to be recorded parent modules. That's significantly less expensive, and that's now a missed CPT code, right? A missed opportunity for me. It's going to be report 97151. Maybe they'll put the kids in front of a computer, and that'll, like, people are gonna, I'm gonna say it anyway. So I disable the AI on all of our EHRs and practice management and data collection. And I do not permit using the report functions. Professional writing is I am vehemently like that. Professional writing is part of communication. Communication skills are critical for your success as a human, because we are humaning with other humans. If I can't let you not develop that skill.
There's research now, right, that's showing that potentially, like, it decreases your IQ.
Oh, no, potentially, yes. The more you use ChatGPT, the lower your IQ is. And it makes perfect sense, because I know
you're not using a skill.
Like, I had to stop using ChatGPT for emails, because, like, I'm just being, I would forget I even wrote it. I would be like, I didn't
write it.
Well, yeah, you're right. Like, right. I didn't write it. Yeah. And so I didn't even remember sending that email. So, like, it obviously, yeah. I mean, I know that there could be some things that it's potentially good at. I don't think we have a choice, right? It's almost like Google, right? Like, it's here, right?
Yeah, we get to decide, right? So I get to decide how it's used in my organization. For some people, that's enough for them to say, no, that's
right.
Okay, that's your choice, you know.
Right.
But I get to decide how I use ChatGPT, because I use it for, so, like, I think I probably use it more like a expanded Google search, which I'm sure is inefficient, sure. But that's so far what I kind of use it for. It can be helpful. I think there's very few things that are all good or all bad. It's under what 100%. Conditions does this fit for me at this time. Right.
Yeah, I just, like, with the power that a BCBA has, and you're putting this through AI, like, you are creating your replacement, right? Like, you are creating your replacement. And I can't remember who came on the podcast and told us, maybe it was Dr. Cox, but they put treatment plans done by AI and treatment plans done by BCBA, and then they had BCBAs review them and say which one was done by AI and which one was done by BCBA. And it was very difficult to.
I thought they said it was like,
yeah, it was almost. I think that it was still noticeable-ish, yeah, but it was almost indistinguishable, right? And that, yeah, like you said, like, they're not coming after the text job.
The first step in a change process is accurately labeling your snag, and I think, like, how can we start doing what we know needs done? I think that's the precipice we're on, right? It's like, here's all these things that we need. What's that first step going to look like for each person? And that will have an impact on the profession, because the profession is made up of humans. So as humans change, the profession changes, and we each get to be a contributor to whether that goes in the way that we feel good about or in a way that we don't feel good about, because we all have power in the now. That's that mindfulness, right? How things were yesterday. Yesterday doesn't exist. Neither does tomorrow. So thinking about spending our time here in our head in those time zones isn't helpful. present now in this interaction, am I showing up with you all the way that I want? If not, let me change it. If I am, keep going.
The time check that you recommend doing for the week, it's a 24-hour time check, right?
Yeah.
So if I have like a panic attack at 2 a.m, I open my computer and do some work, I need like...
So you get to decide how you do it.
Okay.
For me, I do want that much data because what I hate work-life balance. I think it's a terrible phrase. Balance makes it sound equal,
No
which
such
is
thing.
part of the problem, right? Language matters.
Yep.
So it's about integration. And so I am an integrated, holistic human, no matter where I am. Some work weeks, work needs more, and some work weeks, home needs more. I need to be, success is determined by my ability to integrate and flex based on need, which PS is also what we ask our kids to do. So
100%.
Parallel process. But when I'm doing that, I want all the data, because when stuff doesn't get done during the workday and it's a work task, it doesn't disappear. I do it at home. So really, what is my work day? How much am I working? To include how often am I checking emails when I'm outside of work? For me, that actually was something I was doing a lot. And it's because I think, like the owner you mentioned, it was giving me reassurance that things were okay.
Yes.
When there were no emails in there, but then I felt tethered to my email. So I do batching. I check it once in the evening, and that's it. And it's much easier to do because I've learned how to reassure myself, right? So I would say do all the data, do all the time, just so that if you're going to do something, do it the whole way. But
sure.
But I also acknowledge that when someone's feeling really burned out, what they're saying is, I can't do one more thing.
Another thing.
And so don't let the 2:00 panic attack stop you from doing the time study, because that's too much. So get in where you can, start where you can. If you can do it for a day, that will be a good start, and it might build momentum. But again, that's that burnout, and that's that self-care piece, right? When people say they're burned out and we say, well, you need to take a day off, you need a vacation, you need to get more sleep. Well, now we've just not the victim, but we've just blamed, you didn't do something when it's a systemic breakdown.
Yep. Yeah, you need to do more, right? Essentially, and it sucks.
Okay, well, we want to respect your time, and we want to respect the time of those listening. I mean, I could just sit here and take all of this in. I love learning, even when I come into something thinking, oh, I already know about this. I love being able to be curious and open and seeing someone else's perspective. So my ask for those of you who are listening today, maybe I know you've already heard this podcast, but maybe rewatch it, re-listen and think about it, maybe step back, and be open to taking in a different perspective, or just being curious about how your own self plays into some of these things.
And if a business owner hears this and says, I need to talk to Becca, is that something that you offer, consulting, mentorship? Is that something that, I
do. If there's availability, right? That's saying no is hard and important. Open about what I believe as part of my self-care. And so it allows people to opt in or out as early as possible. And I'm okay with both. So I don't always have the capacity for an ongoing relationship, but it is something that I do a good bit of. And I enjoy, because I've been there. It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah. And it's lonely, right? It can be lonely and very difficult. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Also, on that note, I will remind listeners of our support group. It is completely free.
Yep.
No strings attached. And we chose Discord just because that was the way we were able to provide it to you at no cost and be able to access it. And so if you are interested in joining that support group, just the link is in the show notes, and you can go. You'll fill out a little not application, a little form.
Survey,
a
form or something.
And then our amazing coordinator, Melanie, will reach out to you and help you to get that all set up. And then, like I mentioned earlier, if you have any comments, questions, stories, if you disagree with us, anything that you want to chat with us about, just call the podcast hotline, and that number is also in the show notes. And then we'll also link how you can reach Dr. Becca Tagg. We'll we'll put all of that in there as well. So thank you so much, truly, for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too.
All right. Well, thank you so very much. And we'll see you all next week.
See ya.